Welcome back to 7 Seconds or More. This is episode 17. As always, I'm your host, Peter Howarth, and I'm here today with Daniel Park. Dan, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Great to be back. We have it's a bit of a breaking news, a little after the fact, but Deandre Ayton is expected to sign a max offer sheet with the Indiana Pacers, and according to Woj, the Suns are planning to match that deal, which means he would go back to the Suns. But
Yep.
there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, this isn't something you see a lot because with the number one pick, it usually goes one of two ways. Either you're very good and the team will lock you up, a la LeBron James, or we just saw Zion get the bag the other day,
Yep.
or you're a complete bust and you will not make it to a second contract, like Anthony Bennett. It's like a weird gray area with number one picks.
hmm
If you're not even getting offered a second contract, but by the team that drafted you, but someone else is willing to give it to you, it doesn't happen that much anymore.
Yep.
So, like, what was the first thing you thought when after this whole thing is happening? Because I mean, there's just so much to sort of unpack here.
I mean, first of all, you can't let an asset like that walk out of the door for nothing, especially when you're trying to contend. Um, and them matching the offer is definitely the right move. And the the KD situation that didn't even exist a month ago, and I think this was where things were expected to go in the first place. But I think it's poor on the Suns' part and almost comical that they let this go until the last point instead of giving Ayton the money earlier. I think it was last summer, but they wanted to give him what was it, one less year? I think.
They didn't want to give him 5; they only wanted to give him 4.
Right. And now they have a player who knows he's not wanted by that organization, and the league knows that Phoenix can't wait to get rid of him. So his value is just much lower than what it was previously.
Yeah, especially if Phoenix is gonna match, why wasn't this whole thing getting done earlier? And there is a
Exactly.
lot that's changed, certainly with the Kevin Durant sweepstakes. But if he is matched, this is according to Woj, because I don't know the CBA like that. He has so if the Suns match, Aiden has veto power on a trade
That
for a full year. So he could say, "I don't want to go."
would be funny. That would be
Yeah,
funny.
I don't want to play with Ben Simmons. So no, and as well due to a clause in the CBA, I believe it's called a just like a recently signed player clause. If you become a free agent, you cannot be traded until in this case January 15th.
hmm
This does not apply if you sign an extension, such as like Damian Lillard, for example. Not that he won't be traded, but for example, so even if Phoenix is all in on going all in for Durant, there's still a lot of issues there. And if this thing drags out into the regular season, which if Brooklyn doesn't get swept away by offers, they have no impetus to rush it.
hmm
Doing a massive salary deal like that in season with picks, potentially
It's
bringing in a third team,
yep.
is incredibly hard to navigate. There's a reason you don't see it that often with players of that caliber. Um, but yeah, well, crazy thing is Aiden's not that bad of a player. Let's just start
hmm
there. Like
Yeah,
Aiden's not
absolutely.
bad. And certainly what you were talking about earlier with you can't lose the asset. So why do you think Phoenix wasn't just willing to push it last offseason, just lock him up? Because if they had locked him up, he could be available for a trade right now. But do you think they really just don't think he can be the guy? Because I mean, last playoffs, like 2 playoffs ago when the Suns made their finals run, he
hmm
was a huge part of that. Everyone was
Right.
penciling him into he's gonna make a leap. He's a top 30 player, like
Yep.
for sure. But what has sort of happened there, do you think?
Yeah, I don't think they valued him and saw him as a max player. And I feel like they were a bit surprised that there was a team or teams that do value him as that player, which is kind of surprising from my perspective because, like you said, there have always been signs that he can be a really important part of a contending team. Um, the potential, his age, um, and he's improved leaps and bounds on defense and especially on offense. So I think it's kind of has us scratching our heads of why they didn't see him as that type of player, especially drafting him number one. And with that core that they have, I feel like they would have to try everything to keep it intact, especially with Chris Paul. He's not getting any younger, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with Paul, we saw how he came into Phoenix and made them legitimate and helped elevate the games of Bridges, Booker, Cameron Johnson, and Ayton. But Ayton on his own, I mean, he for his career is averaging 16 points a game, 10.5 rebounds.
Hmm.
Uh, but he's still very unique in the upper tier of centers in the league because unlike Jokic or Embiid, he's not really someone who stretches the floor, nor is he a great passer. He averages
Hmm.
for his career zero point 0.2 3-point attempts a game. He makes a quarter of them, and he averages 1.6 assists a game. So he is very much a traditional low post guy, and he's not a huge defensive presence in terms of counting stats either. I know he's very much improved in team defense,
Yep.
averaging one block a game for his career. And also over his 4-year career, he's only played 70 games one time. Granted, he played 69 in 2020, 2021. But I believe it was 2020 or
He
2019.
gets suspended.
Yes, he was suspended for
That's when Frank Kaminsky was popping off.
it was like 30 games or something. Frank
Yep.
Kaminsky, didn't he
He
just
was
sign a
going nuts.
contract?
Uh,
I swear I just saw Frank the Tank in the news. I was excited.
the Hawks.
The
Wow.
Hawks.
This completely missed me. I didn't even see this.
Oh, the John Collins replacement. Yeah, but the thing with Ayton, he's just such a traditional low post. He's not a great defender per se. He's not a great passer, and he can't really stretch the floor. And there have been sort of questions presented by some people about his commitment and dedication to getting better.
Hmm.
And just playing devil's advocate, if I'm Brooklyn, do I want Ben Simmons
Exactly.
and DeAndre Ayton on the same team? Both guys who can't shoot will have big money, and their desire to improve and grow and to turn into like winning basketball players has been questioned at times.
Hmm.
Even though if you're on paper, Simmons and Ayton look like two young studs. So it's a very weird position to be in for Brooklyn and Phoenix. But if let's say Phoenix doesn't match this contract and Ayton is on his way to Indy, what do you think that team turns into? Is it Halliburton's team? Is it Ayton's team because he'll be making the big bucks, or is it just a classic sort of Pacers team where they just have a bunch of guys contributing?
I think it's Halliburton's team. I mean, I know you're a big fan of him. Uh,
Number one supporter.
he's a he's a great player, and um, I think Jalen Smith when they extended him, I think they got him off of steal. So they're building a really good core, I think. And if they were able to get Aiton, I think they have a lot of good pieces. And Chris Duarte, who was really good in his rookie season last year as well. Uh, yeah, I think I would have been happy if the Pacers were able to get Aiton. I would have been happy for their fans, but they might have to wait a year, see what happens.
The Pacers are a team that they historically do not tear things down and tank. They are Indiana is like it's like the heart of basketball or very big basketball state, and they've been competitive ever since, Reggie Miller, and they haven't really had a down season since.
Hmm.
And when they got rid of Malcolm Brogdon for not a lot of competitive pieces at the moment, and Sabonis for a younger package, although I think Halliburton will end up being the best player in that trade,
Yep.
they were starting to, skyrocket towards the bottom of the standings. And it makes sense if you look at the personnel. But if they bring in Ayton, I think it's a very savvy move, and it's a great move. Getting Ayton's going to be like 23 or 24, number one
Yeah.
pick, a great piece to build around. And then they drafted Benedict Mathurin as well out of Arizona.
They all fit the age group.
Yep,
They're
apparently
all
he's
moving
very
together.
quiet, like focused, intense guy. Whereas,
Hmm.
as far as Halliburton's persona is, he's a little more affable. I think they're building a great unit there. They have a coach in Rick Carlisle who knows how to win. He has
Right.
been in and around the NBA for about 40 years. So I think it's just some great Indiana basketball. Um, but who knows what'll happen there? There's still a lot of unknowns. Who knows if Phoenix will match it?
Hmm.
But I just wanted to wrap up on just again how good Ayton actually is. This is from StatMuse, the most points per game on 60+% field goal last year.
Okay.
So this is number one in the league was DeAndre Ayton, 17.2 points a game. Jared Allen and then Rudy Gobert. So he's efficient and can put the ball in the basket, which is obviously very
Really soft touch around the rim.
very soft touch. The top reply on that tweet was Zion did this with 27 points per game in his second season. So
Okay.
not every number one pick is created equal.
Yep.
Um, I think that's just crazy. Good for Zion for getting that designated extension.
Go Zion.
Go Zion. I'm rooting for him. Why wouldn't you?
Of course.
Um, so let's transition to another guy who's been in the news, Donovan Mitchell. As of last week, it seemed as if the Jazz were intent on keeping Mitchell and him being the Paul Pierce to the new Jazz rebuild, as Paul Pierce was to the Celtics in 2007, 2008. But as of last night, Shams reported that they are now engaged in listening on to trade offers on Mitchell, and that the Knicks are the main focus of that, looking at just a ton of first round picks, according to Tim McMahon, and young guys like Obi Toppin, Cam Reddish, Quentin Grimes. Um,
Grimes. Yep.
but let's just get all that out of the way. Is he gonna go to the Knicks? And if they get him, are they gonna be good? Like I don't trust the Knicks to get him,
Hmm.
and is a
That
core of
backcourt defense.
yeah, I mean, is a core of Jalen Brunson, Donovan Mitchell,
Mitch Rob.
Julius Randle, if he stays, and RJ Barrett, I guess, if they manage to keep all those. Are they doing anything? I mean, are they? We did this exercise the other week. How loaded each conference is.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. They're not a lock to make the play-in by any means, even with that group.
Nope. I, the reaction from Knicks fans for Donovan Mitchell, I think they talk about him as if he's like a bum. Like I understand the concern over the defense between Brunson and Donovan Mitchell. People were describing that like teams are just going to be slicing through like it's cheese. And while that could be the case, I mean there have been backcourt duos that aren't known for their defense that have had success or like relative success in the league. Um, but like you said, I mean, both conferences are so stacked. The divisions are stacked. Um, And I think the biggest takeaway is that the Knicks are going to have to gut a lot of their team in order to acquire this guy, and it's not even like a lock for success. It's a major risk that they're going to be taking. So yeah, I don't know how that bodes long term.
It depends at the angle we're looking at it. If we're trying to make the championship, I don't think that. I mean, I think there's a lot the Knicks would have to do. I don't think
Yeah.
Mitchell cures that. But if you want to make New York basketball exciting again, and you want to watch
Power
your
guard.
guys, Mitchell
Yeah.
is from New York. Um, he's a big Mets fan, and then Brunson obviously has ties to the organization. They're guys you can rally behind. They're both young, and you would love watching those guys. Put the ball in the basket for the next foreseeable for the foreseeable future. So
Mm-hmm.
it makes the league more fun when the Knicks are a little bit feisty.
Yep.
I think he'd be a great presence there in Madison Square Garden. They haven't had a homegrown like New York-based guy since Stephon Marbury.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Granted, I'm not a Knicks fan. I can't empathize with a Knicks fan, but having like a legitimate all-star in your building and having them to be able to just like be a little more competitive, I think that's
Mm-hmm.
compelling. I'm I don't really care if I send Obi Toppin out the door.
Absolutely.
I'll drive him to the airport. Um, but yeah, I mean that's the thing with Mitchell. He has sort of regressed on defense every single year he's been in the league. Um, and he's been a high volume guy ever since he's entered, and a lot of pressure has been on him uh, as the Jazz have sort of fallen below expectations.
Yep.
But the Jazz don't have any need to rush this thing as well. Um, Mitchell hasn't really shown any desire to leave Utah. He has not requested a trade or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, he kind of likes tweets every week, like clowning on Salt Lake
Passive
fans.
aggressive.
Yeah,
Yep.
so I think it's probably more likely than not he'll be traded just due to when a new GM or a new coach comes in, like they want to have
Mm-hmm.
their guys.
Yeah.
And Mitchell isn't necessarily an Ainge guy, so we'll see what happens there. Do you think
Do you
he'll go to the Knicks on record?
I believe so. I mean, from what the reports said about Miami, they're looking to, or the Jazz want to bring in a third team because they're not interested in Miami's assets. Uh, Assets meaning Tyler Hero, who kind of stunk it up in the playoffs this year. I know he struggled with injury, but he he wasn't great, especially against the Hawks, who are not a good defensive team.
No, that Hawks
Um,
team was reeling as well.
yeah,
I just I can Tyler Hero be like the second best player on a playoff team? Like I don't think so. Why
no,
is he the
definitely not.
centerpiece of the package I'm getting back? And I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
have to pay him big money.
Yep,
Um, but like, then again, bringing a third team really complicates things because it seems as if most teams in the league are kind of set with their rosters at the moment, and
yep.
I don't know, maybe like Charlotte or Washington aren't. They're kind of just wild cards. Who knows what they're doing?
But yeah, I mean, RJ Barrett, Donovan Mitchell, and Brunson. I think that could be a good trio to build around if they're able to, retain all of them. And obviously, it's not great defensively, but I think it helps them uh, become more exciting, like you said, and it becomes a more attractive free agent spot. And it's definitely not a bad place to be in if you're a free agent.
It does seem like Donovan has a lot of friends too. Jalen Brown is big friends with Donovan Mitchell. He'll
Mm-hmm.
be a free agent in the upcoming years, and it would be unlikely he would sign an extension with the Celtics because the Celtics can only offer him like a percentage more than his current deal. And since he signed under a max extension, he was a slightly below max value. Jalen Brown's a max player. So If you
Right.
want to come back to the Celtics, he would likely test free agency and get the full 5 years that way. He recently liked a tweet the other week that said that Celtics fans like don't
Oh,
appreciate
right.
Jalen
Yeah.
Brown.
Hmm.
I think, I mean, I tend to think Jalen likes Boston,
Hmm.
but who knows? Maybe he could go to New York and team up with Donovan. I can already
Didn't he
see the
get a lot of
edits now.
love? Didn't he get a lot of love this postseason when he stepped up when Tatum was struggling? So it's
No, actually,
he
I'll be
didn't.
no. I mean, in terms of the finals,
Okay.
um, like at least in Game 6, Jalen put in like 34. No
Right.
one really cared. The two storylines about those two guys were that Jason was like tired and not ready for the moment and like isn't Kobe because that's all anyone
Yep.
cares about. And with Jalen, it's just that he can't dribble left and he just constantly throws the ball off his foot. Everything I just said is true, but
Yeah.
you can see
Hmm.
where I don't know Jalen could get frustrated because it does seem Tatum certainly gets the higher billing in Boston.
Yeah.
Um, so if he wants to have his own team, that's a whole different question. Um, so I think we're going to take a break there. We're going to talk a little bit Richard Jefferson, his officiating debut, and some other things before we wrap up. And we'll do that right after the break. Okay, coming back from the break. So the other day, Richard Jefferson, he refed the second quarter of it was like Trailblazers, I believe. I believe that's Summer League.
Uh,
So no one
yeah.
watched. Everyone just watched the mic'd up highlights.
Yep.
But he wanted to empathize with referees and see the whole thing. So he took like a week of classes, and then he was a ref for one quarter of the summer league game.
Hmm.
I thought it was super cool to see. He said it was like super hard and like getting the positioning right on the court, and then knowing all the
Yep.
hand signals. He messed a couple
Yep.
up.
Hmm.
Um, and it just shows you how hard it is. Because as much as we can be like how can you not see his foot on the line or something like that,
Hmm.
there's a million other things they're looking at and thinking about.
Yep.
Do you think more former players should try this out or be refs? I don't think it would happen because the players make so much money. Why would they like waste time doing that? They could just go to games. Um,
Yeah. I think. I mean, I think it's great. I think of a lot of the players and media who criticize the refs. Um, most who attempt what RJ did that night by actually being a ref, they'll understand how hard the job is. And I think that was the first time that I focused on the refs that much, and it made me realize how much they actually rotate positions over the course of the game. So it was pretty cool to see. And him obviously being mic'd up, it just gave the fans like the refs perspective. Yeah, it was cool.
it's super cool to see. I've noticed this. I do it a lot in summer league because when I watch a summer league game, I'll watch for like one player.
Hmm.
Um, but if you like watch a game and just track one player, it is so interesting the way they move, and you're like, okay, well, he's not really fighting around that screen. Oh, that's because the action is for the other side. Or let's say the same play. He's not really fighting through that screen because it's like a fake screen just to get the switch. Just like tracking these guys, it's a really unique way to watch a game. I feel the same way whenever Jake J. Reddick is a broadcaster.
Hmm.
Um, I sort of listen in a different way, and the
Definitely.
things he does versus like a normal broadcaster or stuff like that. Um, I do think more people should do it just so the perspective is out there and there's more respect for referees. Because it's super hard, and there's rule changes all the time. We just saw the take foul rule change finally get implemented.
Hmm.
And so that'll probably have some kinks to get sorted through. but it's ultimately a good thing, and it's just a great way to like get exposure for how tough all this is.
Yeah. It also just gives fans an excuse to watch the game. I don't think there were any like quote unquote hot prospects playing that game except for Quentin Grimes.
Yeah,
So why?
if Quentin Grimes is the headliner, then I
Yeah,
don't think anyone's watching because Shaden Sharp's hurt. So
yeah. So I think Richard Jefferson was probably more exciting. Watching him and listening to him was more exciting than the game itself. So I think it's a fun way to just have people watch the summer league games. But yeah,
yeah, I
I
mean
would like to see Draymond do it actually.
Draymond, would he be your number one pick for players in the league you'd like to see do it?
It'd be fun to get a player that complains a lot to the refs, that has a lot of arguments with the refs, that just doesn't get along with them that well.
Well, Draymond fits that for sure. I want to see like Chris Paul do it. Chris Paul is always talking to refs, but at the
Right.
same time, he's like incredibly smart, just like
Mm-hmm.
Draymond, and he
Yeah.
knows he complains because he knows every rule. But yeah, doing it is a whole different thing. Uh, Probably the top two guys I'd like to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're just gonna wrap it up with a last segment. Some basketball related news this past week. The cover athlete for next year's NBA 2K was revealed. Devin Booker. I'll be honest.
D book.
Sometimes I like to go through the end of the season and think of the storylines and who's popular and think who could potentially be on the cover. My short list was Jason Tatum because he has a deal with 2K already,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean he made a deep finals run, and Ja because he's incredibly popular with kids, or Curry because he won the title. Those are kind of the ones. So Book kind of jumped off the page for me. I wasn't expecting it. Did that
Yeah.
surprise you? Do you think anyone else should have gotten it?
I thought Jaw was near lock for it.
The odds,
Especially
I swear, the
because
odds would have been like minus 2,000 for Ja.
yeah, especially because our last memory of Devin Booker is him and his team getting whacked by Luka Doncic and the Mavs. That's the last lasting memory that we have. So yeah, I'm surprised that it wasn't Ja, and it would have been awesome. Or even maybe two-time MVP Jokic would have been interesting.
Jokic is infinitely less marketable,
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
I think it would have been good. I mean, we've seen some weird players have well, not weird, but just like Anthony Davis has been on the cover before.
Yeah,
He's
it's an
not
odd
that
one. It's not
marketable.
that guy.
Kyrie Irving was on the cover one year. I we don't less is more to be said about him. Yeah, Josh just made sense with how fun the Grizzlies were. He made a big leap this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, but hey, but no shade on Book. Um, but fun fact: Curry's never had he's never had a solo cover. One year they did a cover
Oh,
that had
was it
KD,
three of them?
Harden, and Curry. Yeah,
Yep. Yeah.
that's just
Yeah.
crazy. Like Curry hasn't had his own
Hmm.
because I think LeBron's had it. Luca was this past year. They've had 80 Zion. That one
Yeah, Zion. That was a little early.
That one kind of pissed me off, not gonna lie. He played like 20 games, and they're like, be on the cover of the video game.
Yeah, I think it would have been nice to see Steph get one. Maybe, yeah, especially after such a historic season for him personally as well.
Yeah, he broke the 3-point record. Dude can't get a cover of a video game. Yeah, it doesn't make
Yeah.
sense to me. But
Mm.
good for Book.
Come out
This
on the
just
pod.
come on the pod Book. This just sounds like we're hating on Book. I like Book. You like Book.
I like Book.
He's a cool guy. He's a good player.
Good guy.
Yeah, I just the last impressions kind of gave bad taste in the mouth. The Grizzlies put up a really good fight against the Warriors without Ja.
Hmm.
After a great season by Ja. Book had a great season, first team All NBA, but the
Absolutely.
Suns underwhelmed and kind of fell incredibly flat, and that was that. Um, let's just try to come up with this now. Predictions for next year's 2K
Cover
cover.
athlete.
We can
Oh
do it now.
shoot! I'll let you go first.
Okay. So Ja is definitely. I still think John Tatum should be the
Absolutely.
front runners.
Yeah. But
I mean, there could be some young guys in there that sneak, and there's probably like a player I'm completely forgetting about. I'm gonna lock in Ja though. It just makes too much sense.
ooh, okay. Um, man, I was thinking jaw too, but I'm gonna try to bring in some variability. Different player. I think I'm going for Zion round two. He's gonna play 56 games next season. He's gonna win Most Improved Player. He's gonna dunk all over teams. He's gonna lead his team to the ninth seed, and the Pelicans are gonna go all the way.
Okay, sure. I think there's a dark horse of Anthony Edwards. I think I
True.
he will
Very
be
likable guy.
extremely likable. He'll dunk all over anyone. With Rudy, who knows? Maybe they make the second round or something. I don't know. um, Progress for them. But yeah, uh, and again, it's just young guys who are splashy and kids like, and they
Yep.
all fit. Tatum, Ja, Ant, they all
Is Trey not up there?
Trey, Trey. I mean, if the Hawks bounce back, I just feel like they wouldn't want to put Trey on the cover because Knicks fans would be salty.
Yeah. He's not as seemingly likable as those other guys that we mentioned.
No, I
Does
mean
have a good
he
group
plays the
that
heel, and it's
yeah.
good, and he's good at
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
and he's a very good player too. But I just don't think for that reason they'd put him on.
Why do you think it's difficult for like these like Jokic or even like a Luca who's a superstar, but they're European? Do you think that has anything to do with it?
Yeah, well, Jokic doesn't have social media at all,
True.
which does play a little bit of a factor. He plays in Denver, which is for basketball an extremely small market, and
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't get the publicity of other guys. And he kind of just goes about his business. You don't see him in the news for one reason or another.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I think I saw Luca was trying to convince him to like make an Instagram, and Jokic was like, "Nah, I'm good." Um, I mean, Luca's extremely popular, but I feel like it's just because of his highlights, and he's a little bit funny, and he's a guard. It just translates a little more than a big center. Um, I mean, Jokic he's like forever underrated. We cannot
Mm-hmm.
say he's really underrated anymore, after winning back to
Yep.
back MVPs, but it's just harder to market that guy. Although Embiid could be on the cover.
True. And I also think like one of the big things in relation to like Luca and these foreign players is that during the summer they spend their time like overseas, not in the USA. So even in relation to um, attracting free agents or just recruiting players, I don't think they are able to build the same types of relationships with other players in the league. Like those friendships, I don't think they're there as much, especially just because they're not here in the country. So, yeah, definitely in terms of marketability too, I think that plays a part.
There's also not playing in America until you reach the NBA. You know a lot less people
Yeah.
because you're not coming up through your hometown and playing on AAU teams, traveling around the country, playing
Mm-hmm.
at all these camps and these exhibitions, and then in college, and then at All Star games. Um, the All-Star game would be like your first exposure. Um, just because I know him. Jason Tatum, for example, he knew Bradley Beal growing up, as they were both from St. Louis.
St. Louis. Yep.
He also grew up with Harry Giles.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep, and then he was part of the Duke Brotherhood, so we met a lot of Duke guys there. Um, Ones that had graduated and they come back, and then
Yep.
guys in the NBA reaching out to him. And then playing in like the young like U17, U18, whatever it is, USA camps. I know he
Hmm.
knows Bam Adebayo. He had known like Jaylen Brown in college. Where none of that would necessarily be true with Luca.
Yep.
Although Luca did when he was on Real Madrid, he played against the Spurs or
Was it an exhibition game?
yeah, it was like a preseason exhibition a couple of years ago.
Hmm.
If you look it up, it's really funny because you just see all of these Real Madrid players like, oh, that's Luca. There he is. Um, yeah, it's just a like a not necessarily like a disadvantage, but it's just the reality
Yeah.
of it.
Hmm.
So as we wrap up, we will read last week's Q&A and poll. Again, if you want to vote on those and have your Q&A answers read, you can submit that on Spotify, only in the app, I believe. If you don't listen to us on Spotify, good for you. You can also just download the app and do the Q&A and poll and listen elsewhere. You know, however you want to do it. Link to that always in the link in the description of this episode and every episode. Q&A was what's been the biggest move of the off season so far. There were lots of big moves at the time. But Matt Crea said Tyrese Martin to my fantasy team. Shout out to
Excellent
Matt.
choice.
Yeah, I will say I hope you're playing in like a 30 team league or something that Tyrese Martin being in the league makes you excited because we shouldn't be fantasy relevant.
30 team. Might be a little more than that, maybe.
Like a 60. Oh, well, it depends on how big their rosters are.
That's true.
I do like the idea of like a 30 team because then every like starting lineup, every
It'll be fun.
player will be represented. Someone's got to
Yep.
have Jalen Smith.
Someone's got to have Isaiah Whaley
Big
unless he
Whale.
makes the cut.
Do you have a nickname? Isaiah? Oh yeah, he's the wrench.
The wrench.
Isn't it the wrench? Yeah,
I haven't heard of that.
pretty sure it's the wrench.
It is the wrench.
I knew it. Great nickname. Yeah, keep an eye out for the wrench if he makes the Hornets because that's who he's been with for the summer league so far.
Shout out Duncan.
Shout out Duncan. Um, I'm sure he's watching the Hornets. And then the poll was who will Kevin Durant play for next season? Now I did the options I listed were the Nets, Suns, Heat, Pelicans, Knicks, Lakers, and other. I mean, I guess I should have included like instead of the Knicks, I should have put like
Pacers.
the Pacers.
The Raptors, maybe.
That was the one. I couldn't think of them again. My bad, Raptors fans. Yeah, I should have put the Raptors, but it was the Nets in first place, followed by a tie between the Heat and other. So no one thinks the Suns,
Other.
or at least not the majority of our listeners.
What do you think? Did you vote on
I
this one?
I think the Nets because the Nets have no incentive to rush it,
Yep.
and as far as they're concerned, Kevin Durant's on a 4-year contract. He's got to
Hmm.
play basketball for them. So
Yeah.
do you think likewise?
Yeah, I think he ends up staying on the Nets. They don't really owe him anything. They gave him time to recover after his injury. They built the team around him and Kyrie, obviously. They brought in Steve Nash, who both of them are fond with.
And as far
Obviously,
as I'm
James Harden.
concerned, Nash has been a bad coach. So
Yes, he has been. Yeah, I feel like Nash is escaping a bit of criticism just because everyone's just saying like, oh, this was KD and Kyrie's team from the start, so Nash is just there to be their puppet. But from a coaching standpoint, he hasn't been good. His rotations were not good at all either. Um, but yeah, I think KD's going to be stuck in Brooklyn next season, and like you said, they don't have really any incentive to let him go until they get an offer that they like.
I agree, and I think it'll be again super hard to figure out a trade or anything of the sort mid-season. So if Kevin's on the move, it would probably have to be next season. And hey, if they run it back with the group they have, Ben Simmons contributes, bring in TJ Warren.
Right,
Who
TJ
knows?
Warren.
Maybe they just say run it back and they see what they can get out of the unit. If they make like a deep run, could be a success for them. If not, I don't know, sort of on house money running it back. They should blow the thing up anyways if Kevin wants to leave.
Do you think TJ Warren, his bubble stuff was a fluke, or you think there is like that player in him? I know he's coming off a lengthy injury, but
Um, any of the bubble stuff certainly needs to be taken with a grain of salt, especially like individual player performances, because I think we've said this before. It's been documented so much that many players were really struggling. Certainly from a mental aspect, and their
yeah.
focus wasn't there. And if you were there and you were locked in, then it seems like you could really make a contribution with some fresh legs after a couple months off. So I think TJ Warren's a good, improved player. Uh, I don't think he is like that guy. I think he could be like an intriguing sixth man, buy low option for them, which is something they need.
Hmm. Yeah. And they also have Royce O'Neal. I think that was an interesting deal that the Jazz did because Royce is one of their better defenders. Obviously, a wing guy. He can shoot. But yeah, I think I don't know. That's a good pickup for the Nets.
Yeah, it's
Those
good,
two guys.
good more wing depth. They kind of lacked like bigger wing depth because like their biggest wings aside from Durant were and Blake Griffin, I guess, were like Cam Thomas and Kessler Edwards and Bruce Brown, which are all more shooting guard likes. So O'Neal, TJ Warren should help with that size. Um,
Yep.
so I think from there we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you, Dan, for coming on, recording this emergency Ayton stuff. Who knows where it'll go? I
Thank you.
we'll see in the upcoming days. But thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you next time.